ये थे जनाब इदरीस अब्बासी साहब, नहायत मशहूर हैं उन्होंने बड़ी सैर असल और तफसीली बहस जो है वो बैनुल अक़वामी कानून के हवाले से हक़ ख़ुद इरादियत पे की, और इनके मकाले के मुताबिक हक़ ख़ुद इरादियत तमाम हुकूक़ की बुनियाद है, और अगर किसी कौम को इस हक़ से महरूम कर लिया जाए तो गोया उसको मैसर बाकी तमाम हुकूक़ जैसे कि माशी हुकूक़, सकाफ़ती या दीगर सियासी हुकूक़ वो बेमानी हो जाते हैं। उनकी एग्जिस्टेंस से फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, उनके होने से फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता अगर इन तमाम हुकूक़ में बुनियादी हक़ जो हक़ ख़ुद इरादियत है उससे किसी कौम को महरूम कर लिया जाए। और इनके नतीजे जो इन्होंने ड्रा किया उसमें एक ख़ूबसूरत बात जो कि बैनुल अक़वामी कानून की रूह से एक कानूनी ज़िम्मेदारी रियासत के हवाले से भारत के ऊपर जो है वो इम्पोज़ होती है, और इसी को इन्वोक किया जाए बैनुल अक़वामी दुनिया के सामने, और यही वो राह होगी कि जिसकी तरफ हम अगर यूनिटी के साथ प्रोसीड करेंगे तो हम किसी फ़ाइनल कंक्लूजन या रेजोल्यूशन की तरफ पहुंच सकते हैं। तो फिर एक बार शुक्रिया के साथ और नेक्स्ट presenter is Mr. Awais Wasi, who is the serving Dean of Social Sciences at Rifa University, Islamabad, and he will proceed for his thoughts on the agenda. Mr. Awais Wasi.
I would talk about, in my presentation, key imperatives on Kashmir. So I formally begin with the permission from the Honorable Speaker, respected panelist, worthy Vice Chancellor. My presentation would be divided into two parts. One is what caused the current wave of uprising, and the other one is the possible options for Pakistan. Agony and structure of violence. If you come across a recent book published by Khurram Parvez titled as The Structure of Violence, and some other recent writings produced on Kashmir, and recently, a news story ran by Al Jazeera that it is not Iraq or Syria which is the largest militarized zone on earth, but it is Kashmir. So if you keep in view this context, so you can understand the agony with which people of Kashmir are going through. So that also contributed to this, uprising. The third thing which I suppose became a reason is futility of Pak-India peace process and confidence building measures. There was a deadlock for the last many decades on bilateral front because both the sides they were focusing either on terrorism or Kashmir dispute. So in 1997, a framework was established, which was later on matured in 2004, that 8 basket issues need to be identified and simultaneously negotiations to be taken place on those issues in order to make those dialogue process meaningful and result-oriented. So, on those issues, which among others include Siachen, Sarkri, Tulbul Navigation Project, Kashmir dispute, terrorism, and many others. But unfortunately, after so many years, we could not see any meaningful headway on that peace process. Similarly, confidence building measures started in 2005 by the bus service, and then in 2008 through cross LOC trade. There was a kind of silver lining which appeared then, that there may be some kind of hope and optimism, but then everything ended in smoke because those confidence building measures could not yield the desired dividends. And the desired dividend was to create congenial atmosphere which could prove a stepping stone or became a bedrock to resolve the Kashmir dispute. But later on, it was transpired that these all confidence building measures, perhaps unfortunately, they were meant for conflict management and not conflict resolution. So this despondency also, I think, contributed to the anger among the people of Kashmir. Then hanging of Afzal Guru on February 9, 2013. And that was, Arundhati Rai, author of God of Small Things, leading intellectual, Indian intellectual, who said that this is a stand on Indian democracy. And Gautam Nalaka, former editor of Telka and leading journalist of India, said that it is a judicial murder. And these voices are not, confined to, Indian civil society. One of the leading linguists and, great noted scholar Noam Chomsky also raised concern on Afzal Guru's hanging. So, this hanging based on flimsy grounds and unfounded allegation, I think that also contributed to build the anger which snowballed recently that we can see. Another thing which is also very important is BJP's policy of integration and redesigning demography. BJP believes in the policy of integration and assimilation. BJP believes in unalloyed nationalism. BJP doesn't want to, because the party constructs a Hindu identity. And, I was reading a comment by Shashi Tharoor, former foreign minister, that he was of the view that in India, it is easier to be a cow than to be a Muslim. So, in order to, put in place the policy of integration, BJP tried to, have, mainstreaming of Jammu and Kashmir state by revoking Article 370. So this Article 370 was not the slogan of BJP. It was enshrined in BJP's manifesto. It was enshrined in later on BJP's vision document. And we have also seen that when Prime Minister Modi, earlier, formed his cabinet, that cabinet was very compact. But he inducted Dr. Jatendra Singh from Udhampur, MP from Udhampur, who was the point man of Article 370 of BJP. So that induction and persistent and concerted campaign to revoke Article 370 in order to assimilate that state in the mainstream Indian Union, I think that also caused the mass uprising. Then that Article 370 was, as Home Minister Rajnath Singh also, turned international concern in Lok Sabha. So if you take these things together, you can understand the significance which was given by BJP to this article, revocation of article for mainstreaming, this state with the Indian Union. Composite township for Kashmiri Pandits, although it was mentioned earlier, but later on, the return of Kashmiri Pandit has become a very important and significant issue. And the same Home Minister Rajnath Singh said in Lok Sabha that late Chief Minister of Indian and Kashmir, Mufti Muhammad Saeed, assured Indian government to provide 50 acres of land. So that assurance means that PDP was ready to provide space and land for establishing composite township for Kashmiri Pandits. Because if you keep in view the BJP's rise in Kashmir politics, you can understand this aspect, because BJP's entrance in Kashmir politics has been gradual, as it has been, as you have noticed and witnessed its gradual presence in Indian political landscape. For example, that in 2002 elections, BJP managed to get only one seat. In 2008 state assembly elections, BJP managed to get 11 seats. And in 2014, BJP got 25 seats out of 87 and 25 all from Jammu region out of 37 seats. So now, in Delhi, BJP wants to establish an electoral base and strategic pocket, and for that, this issue of Kashmiri Pandits or return of Kashmiri Pandits and establishment of township was extremely important, strategically important for BJP. And then this was not confined to the return of Kashmiri Pandits, because the Kashmiri pro-freedom leadership have always welcomed the Kashmiri Pandits with open arms and open hearts, but they go against establishing these colonies. So land allocation for former military personnel. 44 acres of land had been identified, and the formal approval had been sought by the late Chief Minister Mufti Mohammed Saeed. This is I'm not saying. B.R. Sharma, who is currently Chief Secretary of Indian and Kashmir, if you can Google, you can find that statement. The 44 acres of land had been identified to establish and to form scenic colonies in the world. Then citizenship rights to West Pakistan refugees. Some people, might think that this demographic change might have been a figment of imagination. But if you carefully analyze, the moves and overtures, you can understand that this is not a figment of imagination. This is based on factual grounds. For example, West Pakistan refugees in Lok Sabha, Standing Committee on Home Affairs, term that this, rights to citizenship or state subjects be issued to these West Pakistan refugees. If these state subjects had been given to West Pakistan refugees, then in future people who have been brought from Bihar, from Kerala, from Punjab, from Gujarat, so they would have taken the same state subject. So then it would be very difficult for to stop or abort the attempt of demographic composition. So that was a very concerted and careful move made by that government. And then this was not the only this was not the only citizenship rights in the Lok Sabha, but 5 seats for West Pakistan refugees. BJP also promised to do that, and then for Kashmiri Pandits, 3 seats have been not reserved but promised to reserve. Now, keeping this backdrop in view, now I think that the second part of the presentation, I have particularly taken a special permission from the Dr. Muhammad Khan to talk about the key imperatives. So, what we need to do? The first thing that we need to do is the strategically packaged narrative on Kashmir to be built. At present, our narrative discourse is largely based on political, journalistic, or diplomatic activism. We need to build upon legal grounds, intellectual grounds, because diplomacy without legal grounds, without intellectual basis and plausible grounds, will achieve nothing. So we need to strategically package the whole narrative on Kashmir if you really want to achieve something meaningful. Then highlight the legal and humanitarian dimension. My previous panelists have extensively deliberated on this aspect of international law, but I think that this point that is missing, and I was sitting in a round table, and one of the noted legal expert, Professor Ahmed Bilal Sufi, also suggested that we need to highlight the humanitarian. This is not only the issue of human rights violations, this is the issue of international humanitarian law. So our state institutions, our intellectuals, they need to focus on humanitarian dimension of this issue, and not only the human rights violation. I think this thing is still missing in our state as well as non-state discourse, which needs to be highlighted. The referendum relevance on Kashmir, I think this argument of referendum, unfortunately, in the past some years, it has it seems to have lost its shine. Reason is quite understandable. The issue has dragged over 7 decades, and then Indian psyops also worse. Pakistan vulnerabilities, domestic imperatives, domestic vulnerabilities are also understandable. So I think that shine that we have to some extent have lost needs to be restored, needs to be revived, because there are some voices of referendum from within India and across the globe. I substantiate some examples here. For example, that one of the Congress MP said in Lok Sabha, I quote, "In Kashmir today there is a need for Rai-Shumari," although he later on retracted, but that statement needs to be seen in the Freudian slip of tongue. Secondly, one of the leading journalists of India, Wilson Week, former editor of Hindustan Times, said, I quote, "I reckon we should hold a referendum in the valley." let the Kashmiris determine their own destiny. If they want to stay in India, they are welcome. But if they stay, but if they don't, then we have no moral right to force them to remain. In 2008, in the wake of Amarnath agitation, he spoke. So, within India, so you can see here that these are the voices which were coming. And another important thing that we need to focus is that recently BBC has run a story that referendums are on the rise. In Turkey, you have seen recently there was a referendum. In Italy, there was recently a referendum. In New Zealand, there was a referendum. In Colombia, there was a referendum. Brexit, took place, referendum. Scotland took place, referendum. And in 2015, South Sudan, referendum. In 1999, East Timor, referendum. So referendum is more relevant in the current global world politics. We need to, revive that shine, which unfortunately is missing in our discourse. Then develop a unified narrative. Earlier, in the first session, this issue has been, discussed threadbare. And I call, this fragmentation, and that fragmentation among the state institutions and among the masses, that needs to be, it needs to be addressed. For example, which I call A, B, and C. A for army, B for bureaucracy, and C for civilian regime. Until and unless there is a minimum bottom line, I don't think that we can, meaningfully contribute. So that A, B, C should close their ranks, and then come up with a unified narrative to, make some meaningful contribution on the issue of Kashmir. Domestic imperatives and Kashmir struggle. It is also understandable, and students of foreign policy, they know that foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. And Pakistan's case in this context is not an exception. But we have observed that in the past many years, these domestic imperatives blurred blurred the line and length of Pakistan's position on Kashmir. So we need to understand, and our policy makers, that domestic imperative need not make the line hazy between the acts of terrorism and freedom struggle. Differentiate between Balochistan problem from K issue. Experts, legal experts, professors of international law, they are sitting here, they can educate that, in this issue needs to be dealing, because the issue of Balochistan is an issue of a sovereign state, and, self-secession from a sovereign state is not acceptable according to the norms of international law. So that the case of Kashmir is quite different. Proactive role of Kashmir Committee, there is 24 members of Kashmir Committee at present and 44 million annual budget, but the performance is absolutely poor. So that Kashmir Committee should not be used for political pride. It should be used for to create, to have some plausible advocacy, generate literature on that. English chairs on Kashmir, they should also be established, and generate and proliferate informed literature on Kashmir. Remember one thing, that although these are the negative examples, but we can learn. For example, the discourse in power. When colonialism took place, a discourse was created. Edward Said deconstructed it. And that discourse was the white man's burden to educate the people who are living in India, people who are living in Africa. Discourse gave the power to the colonizers. Same is the case with the discourse of Islamophobia in Europe. What is this? This is basically a discourse that has been created. I'm not talking about, this is not my subject at the moment, but my point of telling is that, earlier President Sabah also mentioned that there is a paucity of literature. On AJ and Gay, there is not a credible book, but only one book written by Christopher Sheridan from Australia. We need to search so. Similarly, on Pakistani perspective, how many books that we have produced? There is only one book that I came across, Mass Resistance in Kashmir, written by Dr. Tahir Amin. So we need to generate literature so that our perspective will be available on for the international audience. Azad Kashmir as a model region. I do understand the problem, the structural problem of Azad Kashmir. Azad Kashmir is not part of federation. Unfortunately, we are not, a part of many perks and privileges due to our peculiar status. But I think that should not give the justification for the things which are taking place. I don't think that everything is bad, but I think there is wide room open for improvement, and we should set a good precedent to develop AJK, because it would expand our pro-Pakistan constituency in Union Kashmir. So Speaker Assembly is sitting here, so I would like to request them to particularly focus on that issue so that we have good example which will be projected there. And broaden the sport based on the Indian intelligentsia and the masses. There are some voices which were coming from within India, and recently you must have observed that there were protests in favor of Kashmiri people in JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University. So I think that this sport is being widened and expanded. So this is my perception, that until and unless Indian masses are with us, it would be very difficult for us to win the this cause or make any meaningful headway on the resolution. So we need to focus on Indian masses, Indian intelligentsia, and so that we can have voices in favor of the movement. Keep the movement indigenous. Our movement, freedom movement, is vulnerable to domestic dynamics and what are taking place on on international front. So these, this movement, it should, our leadership, particularly the Kashmiri leadership, should try to focus that, it should not have the, influence, particularly I'm thinly referring to Middle East. So that needs to be, kept in view. And we have, we have much to learn from our history. Unfortunately, we did blunders in 1990. We have enough to learn from history. So I think that if these key imperatives are incorporated in our state policy, I can see meaningful difference on Kashmir resolution and making any meaningful contribution. Thank you very much.